Hi, my name is Andrew Krabik,
And I'm Grant Orlowski.
and this presentation is on the location and transportation credit sensitive land protection.
The purpose of this sensitive land protection credit, as referenced by the lead reference guide, is to avoid the development of environmentally sensitive lands and reduce the environmental impact from the location of a building on a site. This works towards protecting sensitive land and pushing more infrastructure towards already developed land. It applies to many different sectors of construction, including new construction, core and shell, schools, retail, data centers, warehouses and distribution centers, hospitality, and healthcare.
The lead reference guide gives us two ways to achieve this credit. First option is to locate the development footprint on land that has already been previously developed. Previously developed land is any land where infrastructure has been constructed and where building on the site will not disrupt any sensitive lands. Second option is to locate the development footprint on land that does not meet the following criteria for sensitive land: prime farmland, floodplains, habitats, water bodies, and wetlands. Therefore, it is possible to still receive credit for building on locations that were not previously developed, but they must not be on these 5 types of lands.
Now we will go further into these sensitive lands, the first of which is prime farmland. LEED attempts to protect all land and soil that has the makeup to produce crops, but also unique farmland, such as those used for crop testing farms for research or areas with very rich soil. In addition, it also protects important farms as defined by local or state regulations. Next, floodplains are also protected. They are defined as flood hazard areas shown on legally adopted flood hazard maps or locations designated by local or state jurisdiction. Because some locations are not always addressed by a flood hazard map, projects can now also not be built on a site with 1% or more chance of flooding in order to receive this credit. In order to determine if land is considered prime farmland, soil data can be found on the National Resources Conservation Service website, where you can download GIS data from the appropriate state or county. These services contain the necessary information to make sure that sensitive sites will not be built on. If it's not available here, a last effort to retrieve this data can be through state or regional offices.
Another type of sensitive land is habitats. These are areas containing species that are endangered or threatened under U.S. Endangered Species Act or similar state acts. Another organization that addresses these issues is NatureServe, which classifies species or ecological communities as possibly extinct, critically imperiled, or imperiled, all of which should be considered before development on these types of sites. The last 2 groups of sensitive lands we'll be talking about are water bodies and wetlands. Development cannot happen on areas within 100 feet of a water body or within 50 feet of a wetland, except for minor improvement. The purpose of avoiding these areas is to help against flooding and to manage rainwater runoff. Examples of minor improvements where these restrictions may not apply are as follows: bicycle and pedestrian pathways no more than 12 feet wide, of which no more than 8 feet may be impervious. Activities to maintain and restore native natural communities and/or natural hydrology. 1 single-story structure per 300 linear feet. Grade changes as necessary to ensure public access. Clearings, which is limited to 1 per 300 linear feet. Removal of the following types of trees: hazardous trees, trees less than 6 inches, and trees under 40% conditioning grading. And last of which, the brownfield remediation activities.
The LEED reference manual emphasizes the importance of receiving this credit by describing what can be gained from protecting sensitive land. Ecologically sensitive areas provide a variety of human health and environmental benefits. Agricultural areas produce food and assist with rainwater management. Floodplains support a diverse ecological systems, supply rich agricultural soil, and provide flood protection. Imperiled or endangered species habitats supports biodiversity, and wetlands and water bodies can buffer against flooding and even help manage rainwater runoff. Development on these sensitive lands not only harms the ecology of the area, but also places people and property in danger. For instance, locating a building in a floodplain or close to a marsh increases its risk of damage from floods or rising sea levels, and the conversion of agricultural land limits local opportunities for producing food. Building on a previously developed site also encourages the reuse of existing built infrastructure and the investment in existing neighborhoods.
Now that we have a better understanding of what sensitive lands are, here is a step-by-step guide to achieve this LEED credit. First step is to determine which portions of the site have been previously developed and to map these sites. Step 2 is to prioritize development on previously developed land. Compare the project's proposed development footprint with the previously developed land. Where possible, locate the development footprint only on portions of the site that have been previously developed. Now, if the footprint does not extend beyond any previously developed portions of the site, the project has met requirements for option 1 and no further action is necessary. However, if the development footprint extends to any land that is not previously developed, follow steps 3 to 8 below to determine the compliance with option 2. The third step is to confirm that the project's proposed development footprint does not encroach on prime farmland, unique farmland, or farmland of statewide or local importance, as identified by the NRCS Soil Survey for the area or local equivalent for projects outside of the United States. Step 4 is to determine location of flood hazard areas. In the U.S., most local governments, flood management agencies, or other local entities maintain flood hazard maps, which may include flood hazard areas designated by both the Federal Emergency Management Agency or a local agency. For step 5, teams in the U.S. should contact the State Natural Heritage Program and State Wildlife Agency to determine whether any habitat or threatened or endangered species has been or is likely to be found on the project site. Step 6 is to determine the location of water bodies and wetlands by using project site maps. The U.S. project team should also consult the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Wetlands Delineation Manual for further guidance on delineating wetlands. Step 7. If the previous steps reveal any prime farmland, flood hazard zones, imperiled species habitats, or wetlands or water bodies, and their surrounding buffers, design the project such that development footprint does not encroach on the sensitive areas. The last step is to ensure that any necessary improvements to enhance appreciation of the wetland or water body and its buffer are considered minor for the credit requirements we talked about earlier.
Specific documentation must be completed in order to receive this credit, as shown here. For options 1 and 2, you must show documentation for site maps showing project boundary, development footprint, any previous development, any sensitive areas, and any minor improvements and required buffers. In addition, a thorough explanation of the previously developed land must be provided for option 1, and a description of how the project team verified prime farmland and sensitive habitat criteria for option 2.
Finally, it is important to realize how achieving a credit for sensitive land protection can also help achieve other LEED credits, including, but not limited to, location and transportation high priority sites, location and transportation site assessment, and sustainable sites rainwater management. Now, by following the steps outlined in this presentation, you can achieve LEED certification for sensitive land protection. Thank you and have a good day.